समस्त लोक सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोक सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोक सुखिनो भवन्तु।
समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु।
शांति शांति शांति।
तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
नमामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत शृण्वन्नोतिभिस्सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती दीनामवित्रयवतु गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम्। ॐ नमो भगवते रुद्राय ॐ नमस्ते रुद्रमन्यवमुतोर्दैशवे नमः नमस्ते अस्तु धन्वने बाहुभ्यामुदते नमः या तैषु शिवतमा शिवं बभूवते तनुः शिवा शरव्याया तव तया नो रुद्रमृडया या ते रुद्रशिवा तनूरघोरा पापकाशिनी तया नस्तनुभाषन्तमया गिरिशं ताभिजागशीः यामिषुं गिरिशन्तहस्ते विभक्ष्यस्तवे शिवां गिरित्रतां कुरु माहि पुंसि पुरुषं जगत् शिवेन वचसा वागिरिशाच्चावदामसि यदा नः सर्वमिज्जगदयक्ष्मगुं सुमना असत् अद्य वोचदति भक्ता प्रथमो नैव्योऽभिषत् अहीतुश्च सर्वान् जम्बयन् सर्वाश्च यातु नान्यः असौ यस्ताम्रो अरुण उत बभ्रुः सुमङ्गलः ये चेमागुं रुद्रा अवितो दिक्षु श्रुताः सहस्रशो वैशाखुं हेडयीमहे असौ योपसर्पति नीलग्रीवो विलोहितः उतैनं गोपा अदृशन्नदृशन्नुदहार्यः उतैनं विश्वा भूतानि स दृष्टो मृडयादिनः नमो अस्तु नीलग्रीवाय सहस्राक्षाय मीडुषे अतो ये अस्य सत्त्वानोऽहं तेभ्यो करन्नमः प्रमुञ्चदन्वनस्त्वमुभयोराग्नियोज्या याश्च ते हस्तैषवः पराता भगवो वपा अवतत्यदनुस्त्वगुं सहस्रांशशतेषु ते निशीर्य शल्यानां शिवो नः सुमना भवा विज्यं दनुःखपर्दिनो विशल्यो मानवागुम्भुता अनेशन्नस्येषव आमुरस्य निशङ्गतिः या ते हेतिर्मीदुष्टमहस्ते बभूवते गनुः तयास्मान् विश्वतस्त्वमयक्ष्मया परिभुजा नमस्ते अस्त्वायुधायानादकाय कृष्णवे उवाभ्यामुदते नमो बाहुभ्यां तव धन्वने परिते धन्वनो हेतिरस्मान् वृणक्तु विश्वतः अतो य इषुधिस्तवारे अस्मन्निदेहितम् नमस्ते अस्तु भगवन् विश्वेश्वराय महादेवाय त्र्यम्बकाय त्रिपुरान्तकाय त्रिकाग्निकालाय कालाग्निरुद्राय नीलकण्ठाय मृत्युञ्जयाय जयाय सर्वेश्वराय सदाशिवाय श्रीमन्महादेवाय नमः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। 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 शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
विघ्नेश्वरा गणनाथ गजानना विघ्नेश्वरा गणनाथ गजानना ईश्वरा गणनाथ शुभानना पार्वती नंदन शुभानना मंगलमूर्ति श्री गणनाथ श्री गणनाथ जय गणनाथ श्री गणनाथ श्री गणनाथ जय गणनाथ श्री अष्टविनायक शुभानना सिद्धि विनायक विघ्नेश्वरा गणनाथ गजानना पार्वती नंदन शुभानना मंगलमूर्ति श्री गणनाथ जय गणनाथ श्री गणनाथ जय गणनाथ श्री गणनाथ अष्टविनायक सिद्धि विनायक विघ्नेश्वरा गणनाथ गजानना अर्ज सुनो मेरे परम कृपालु अर्ज सुनो मेरे परम कृपालु परमेश्वर साई देवा सकल चराचर तुम हो स्वामी सकल चराचर तुम हो स्वामी जन्म मरण से पार करो जन्म मरण से पार करो भव बंधन से उद्धार करो भव बंधन से उद्धार करो बाबा भव बंधन से उद्धार करो बाबा भव बंधन से उद्धार करो अरज सुनो मेरे परम कृपालु
सांब सदा शिव साईश्वरा सांब सदा शिव साईश्वरा गंगाधरा हर गौरी शिवा गंगाधरा हर गौरी शिवा सांब सदा शिव साईश्वरा नर्तन सुंदर नटन मनोहर नर्तन सुंदर नटन मनोहर नाट्य प्रिय कर नटनेश्वरा नाट्य प्रिय कर नटनेश्वरा नाट्य प्रिय कर नटनेश्वरा नाट्य प्रिय कर नटनेश्वरा सांब सदा शिव साईश्वरा गंगाधरा हर गौरी शिवा सांब सदा शिव साईश्वरा नर्तन सुंदर नटन मनोहर नटन मनोहर नाट्य प्रिय कर नटनेश्वरा नाट्य प्रिय कर नटनेश्वरा नाट्य प्रिय कर नटनेश्वरा सांब सदा शिव साईश्वरा
सदा शिवरंजनी साई जननी सदा शिवरंजनी साई जननी सदा शिवरञ्जनी साई जननी अखिलांडेश्वरी राजराजेश्वरी अखिलांडेश्वरी राजराजेश्वरी माता महेश्वरी नारायणी माता महेश्वरी नारायणी सदा शिवरञ्जनी साई जननी शाम्भवी शङ्करी दुर्गा भवानी सदा शिवरञ्जनी साई जननी अखिलांडेश्वरी राजराजेश्वरी माता महेश्वरी नारायणी माता महेश्वरी नारायणी सदा शिवरञ्जनी साई जननी
भुवन बांधवा साई भगवान
भुवन बांधवा साई भगवान
भुवन बांधवा साई भगवान
भुवन बांधवा साई भगवान
मात पिता बंधु सखा तुम हो भगवान
माता पिता बंधु सखा तुम हो भगवान
मात पिता बंधु सखा तुम हो भगवान
माता पिता बंधु सखा तुम हो भगवान
ईश्वर भी तुम हो अल्लाह नानक तुम हो
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 प्रभु यीशु तुम हो महावीर 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 तुम हो
बुद्ध देव तुम हो मेरे प्राणनाथ तुम हो
बुद्ध देव तुम हो मेरे प्राणनाथ
बुद्ध देव तुम हो मेरे प्राणनाथ तुम हो
बुद्ध देव तुम हो मेरे प्राणनाथ
साई राम साई राम साई राम साई राम साई भगवान। श्याम गोपाला राधिक जीवन श्रीरंगा। 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 मेघ श्याम गोपाला मनमोहन सुंदर 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 श्रीरंगा। राधे श्याम गोपाला राधिक जीवन श्रीरंगा। राधे श्याम गोपाला राधिक जीवन श्रीरंगा। पंढरीनाथ गोपाला पांडुरंग श्रीरंगा। पंढरीनाथ गोपाला पांडुरंग श्रीरंगा। पंढरीनाथ गोपाला पांडुरंग श्रीरंगा। पंढरीनाथ गोपाला पांडुरंग श्रीरंगा। परतिपुरीशा गोपाला साई रंग 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 श्रीरंगा। श्याम गोपाला राधिक जीवन श्रीरंगा। मेघ श्याम गोपाला मनमोहन सुंदर श्रीरंगा। मेघ श्याम गोपाला श्याम गोपाला राधिक जीवन श्रीरंगा। पंढरीनाथ गोपाला पांडुरंग श्रीरंगा। परतिपुरीशा गोपाला साई रंग 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 श्रीरंगा। राधे श्याम गोपाला राधिक जीवन श्रीरंगा। जय साई गुरुदेवा। साई गुरुदेवा। 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 गुरु सेवा बिना निर्वाण नहीं। जय साई गुरुदेवा। सेवा बिना निर्वाण नहीं। जय साई गुरुदेवा। जय साई गुरुदेवा साई गुरुदेवा
जय साई गुरुदेवा साई गुरुदेवा
तुम ही हो माता पिता तुम ही हो साई गुरुदेवा
तुम्ही हो माता पिता तुम्ही हो साई गुरुदेवा
सत्य स्वरूपा राह दिखाओ साई गुरुदेवा
सत्य स्वरूपा राह दिखाओ साई गुरुदेवा
गुरु सेवा बिना निर्वाण नहीं जय साई गुरुदेवा गुरु सेवा बिना निर्वाण नहीं जय साई गुरुदेवा जय साई गुरुदेवा साई गुरुदेवा
सत्य सनातन नित्य निरंजन भक्त परायण नारायण सत्य सनातन नित्य निरंजन भक्त परायण नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण नारायण साई नारायण नारायण साई नारायण पति पुरंदर नारायण पुट्टपति पुरंदर नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण सत्य सनातन नित्य निरंजन भक्त परायण नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण नारायण साई नारायण पति पुरंदर नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण गोविंद गोविंद नारायण सत्य सनातन नित्य निरंजन भक्त परायण नारायण श्री राम 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 यदुनंदन हे घनश्याम राम 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 यदुनंदन
श्री राम जय साई राम, रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम, श्री राम जय राम श्री राम जय साई राम, बोलो श्री राम जय साई राम, श्री राम 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 यदुनंदन हे घनश्याम, आनंद में साई नाम में, आनंद में साई नाम में, आनंद में साई नाम में, अद्भुत में साई गीत 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 में, अखंड में ज्योतिर्मय में, अखंड में ज्योतिर्मय में, अखंड में ज्योतिर्मय में, अखंड में ज्योतिर्मय में, सुंदर में साई रूप में, सुंदर में साई रूप में, अति सुंदर में साई रूप में, अति सुंदर में आनंद में साई नाम में, अद्भुत में साई गीत में, अखंड में ज्योतिर्मय में, अखंड में ज्योतिर्मय में, सुंदर में साई रूप में, अति सुंदर में साई रूप में, अति सुंदर में साई रूप में, आनंद में साई नाम में। गोविंद साई कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद, 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 गोपाल 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 साई कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद, गोविंद साई पतिवास कृष्ण गोविंद 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 साई कृष्ण गोविंद गोविंद जय राम जानकी रामा जय राम जानकी रामा जय राम जानकी रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम श्री रघुरामा जय राम श्री रघुरामा जय राम श्री रघुरामा जय राम श्री रघुरामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम सीता रामा जय राम सीता रामा जय राम सीता रामा जय राम सीता रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम जानकी रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम श्री रघुरामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम सीता रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम साई रामा जय राम जानकी रामा शंकरं भजे प्रतिवास साई देव शंकरं भजे शंकरं भजे प्रतिवास साई देव शंकरं भजे शंकरं भजे प्रतिवास साई देव शंकरं भजे शंकरं भजे शंकरं भजे प्रतिवास साई देव शंकरं भजे सद्गुरुं भजे सद्गुरुं भजे सच्चिदानंद गुरु सद्गुरुं 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 भजे शंकरं भजे शंकरं भजे प्रतिवास साई देव शंकरं भजे शंकरं भजे शंकरं भजे प्रतिवास साई देव शंकरं भजे सद्गुरुं भजे सद्गुरुं भजे सच्चिदानंद गुरु सद्गुरुं भजे सद्गुरुं भजे सद्गुरुं भजे सच्चिदानंद गुरु सद्गुरुं भजे सद्गुरुं भजे सच्चिदानंद गुरु सद्गुरुं भजे सद्गुरुं भजे सद्गुरुं भजे सच्चिदानंद गुरु सद्गुरुं भजे शंकरं भजे शङ्करं भजे पत्तिवास साई देव शङ्करं भजे
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायं उदीरयेत्। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायं उदीरयेत्। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायं उदीरयेत्।
Offering my most loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet, dear listeners, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this week's episode of the Gita series. As we do every week, let's begin with a short summary of the verses that we covered last time. We went through verses 17, 18 and 19 of the 5th chapter, and probably we'll go through 3 more verses today. The 17th was an interesting shloka that played with the word tat. The word tat, which is used for referring to Brahman, which can be literally translated into English as that, because there is no attribution of gender to the divine principle. And the most popular usage of that word tat is in Tattvam Asi, right? So in the 17th verse, the word tat was used literally in a form of an alliteration, where Krishna said, one whose buddhi is awakened to that tat, one who identifies one's own self with tat, one who sees that tat as the goal and also is firmly attached to that tat, has all flaws destroyed and reaches a state from where there is no return, or reaches a state of moksha. We discussed in detail how all these descriptions are connected, how the way the buddhi functions when it is awakened to Brahman, and how that is connected to identifying oneself with Brahman and identifying Brahman as the goal and all of that, and how it modifies the way we discriminate in everyday life. We discussed about all of that last week. In the 18th verse, Krishna described the nature of the person that he mentioned in the previous verse as saying, for him or her, there is no difference between a pious Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, or even a dog eater. In the next shloka, Krishna explains how this is so. He says that all the flaws that we speak about, all the merits that we speak about, can only be attributed to the body or to the mind. And the moment one declares that I have understood that the individual is only the Atma, only the self, and not the body or the mind, such a person, a jnani, can never attribute qualities to the individual, right? And another point that Krishna makes in the 19th is that such a person who does not see any discrimination, does not see any attributes or flaws, in other words, who sees through names and forms like one looks through a glass, literally like that. I look at you, I don't see you based on your gender, I don't see you based on your age, I don't judge you based on how you look, what you are. I look past all of these attributes and look at you as another embodiment of that divine self, as Swami would call Divyatma Swarupas. What Krishna says in the 19th verse, and which was interesting, is anyone who is able to see like this, see through all the physical attributes and see the self, such a person is liberated even when alive. What this means is that the ability to live in that state is itself the reward. It is not like if you live like this, after this life ends, you will be called onto a platform, you'll be given a medal and placed in heaven. It's not like that. This state of being able to look beyond the physical and attribute an individual to the Atma is itself liberation, is itself the reward for this spiritual quest. So those were the verses that we went through, and these are all verses which have connection with each other. They are in one portion of the chapter speaking of the same concepts. So these are the 3 verses that we went through. The verses we're going to go through are also going to build on whatever was said in these previous 3 verses. So we'll listen to the first shloka for today, verse number 20 of chapter 5. I'll give you a very brief meaning after that, and then we will discuss in detail of what Krishna says in that shloka and how it is connected to whatever we've gone through so far.
न प्रहृष्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य चाप्रियम् स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः.
A knower of Brahman who is established in Brahman should have his intellect steady and should not be deluded. He should not get delighted by getting what is desirable, nor become dejected by getting what is undesirable. So that is verse number 20, and as always, recited beautifully in the voice of Brother Shyam. We ended the previous shloka with the description of a jnani as one who never gets deluded to think that the Atma has any flaws or even merits. In this idea that an individual is not the body or the mind is a fact that is revealed, and it is not merely a state that is reached, and there is an importance in this distinction. It is not a state which is reached or a status that is acquired, if I could put it that way, but it is a truth which was always there, which is revealed to the mind of the aspirant. Let us say I start a small business. I work really hard, and as all businesses call for, I make many sacrifices. My family makes many sacrifices, and I build a large, successful business. Then this success, I will see it as an achievement that has been acquired through my hard effort, isn't it? Tomorrow, let's say I come across a person who is leading a very simple life, probably doesn't want to exert himself too much. He's happy to take a vacation every now and then, spend weekends in leisure. Just like how I associate my effort with my success, I will associate his mediocrity with his effort, or rather lack of effort, right? But when we talk about jnana, yes, certainly it is attained by effort, and this effort is not comparable to any effort that is required for any worldly achievement. We're talking about effort that spans through many, many lifetimes. So there is a lot of effort that goes into acquiring this spiritual liberation or the goal that we're talking about. But the nature of this spiritual achievement that is attained at the end of all this effort is such that you will not associate your actions with that achievement. That is the very nature of this achievement itself. When at the end of all the sadhana I attain the truth, what is the truth? That I am not this body-mind complex, but I am the Atma. I will not see myself as a great person who did penance, or what a great karma yogi I have been, or I have been a great bhakta who has reached the state. No. I will see myself as the Atma. I will not associate myself with the actions of this body and the mind. Similarly, when I see a worldly person or a person who is still performing sin, the reference was being made to a dog eater. It's a derogatory term to say that someone who does not have the minimum discrimination of what to eat and what not to eat. Right? That is the reference there. So when I see a person like that who is still performing sin or who is still faltering, I will not look at him or her and say, see, I am a jnani and you are still a sinner. Like a businessman would say that by my efforts I am successful and by your lack of efforts you are stuck where you are. No, neither will I associate my sacred actions with the self, nor will I associate the sinful actions of the ajnani with him or her. Because the truth I have reached is, I am the Atma, you are the same Atman. And that samadrishti comes from this truth. So it's a very unique kind of an achievement that by achieving it, I will look back and say that I have not done anything to achieve it. This is the truth. I hope that makes sense, and I will not be able to associate anyone with the effort that they do. The reason I'm saying this is to reiterate the point that this jnana is not like any other worldly success in any stretch of imagination. It is not going to make me feel special. It is not going to make me stand apart, at least in my own view. If anything, it is going to completely strip away from me the sense of individuality. So when we are talking about such an achievement, we will tend to see it the way we see other achievements in life, right? The moment you say that you use the word like goal, you use words like effort and attainments and achievements, we compare it with all the other achievements and goals that we have in life. But it is not to be done so, and that is why every now and then Krishna explains it in terms that we could probably understand from the level where we are, from the point of view of the sadhaka, from the point of view of the karma yogi. And this shloka is again one such shloka. Since we still see the world through the eyes of duality, of likes and dislikes, Krishna says, Na prahashyet. One should not rejoice. Na prahashyet. Priyam prapya. When one attains what is pleasing, what is desirable, right? What one likes. Cha, and na udvijet. One should not be dejected, apriyam, with the unpleasant. And who should be like this? Brahmavit, the knower of Brahman, who is sthirabuddhihi, one who has steady intellect. Asammudaha, the non-deluded one. Brahmani sthitaha, and is established in Brahman. So Krishna says a jnani who is established in Brahman should not be delighted with pleasant things when pleasant things happen, and disturbed when bad things happen. When one gets what one wants and one gets what one doesn't want. And as we've seen so many times already, equanimity is so important in the spiritual path, and this is one of the repetitions that I made a reference to right in the beginning. Equanimity is the true measurement of jnana. But again, this clearly is another shloka for the sadhaka. We've already described the jnani as someone who doesn't associate oneself with the body at all. All needs, defects, cravings are only for the body and at best the mind, right? There is no necessity to instruct the jnani, don't be elated when you get what you like and don't be sad when you get something that you don't want. Oftentimes Swami says this in discourses, accept both good and bad. Don't run away from difficulties. Don't pray to God that you should not have any pain. I think even yesterday's thought for the day is about that. Swami quoted that famous line, Na sukhat labhyate sukham. Happiness doesn't come from happiness, etc. Why does Swami say all this? Because when in pain or when we are anticipating pain, we can try and maintain our balance. Just the acknowledgement that life will have ups and downs goes a long way in preparing the mind to accept the realities of life. But here we are talking about a Brahmavit, knower of Brahman, not merely someone who knows that there is Brahman and that one's true self is Brahman, but this person is also a Brahmani sthitaha, one who is established in that Brahman, and he has sthirabuddhihi, whose buddhi is unwavering, because of which he or she has become an asammudaha, completely beyond delusion. So there is no question of preparing to face ups and downs, or there is no priyam and apriyam for that matter. So though the statement in the shloka is made that a person who is a sthirabuddhi sammudo brahmavid brahmani sthitaha should not be elated or depressed. The real translation of what Krishna is saying is should not be depressed. It is almost like a mandate, a command that Krishna is giving. But Krishna is really speaking, not instructing such a person, but instructing a sadhaka who wishes to become such a person. That if you wish to become a Brahmavit, if you wish to become somebody who has sthira buddhi, then this is the path. You should not be elated when you get what you want, and you should not be dejected when you don't get what you want, or when you get what you don't want. A lot of people ask this question. What do you think about this concept called the law of attraction? Right? Concept spoken of in one particular book series which is called The Secret, right? Does it really work? Has Swami spoken anything about it? In fact, some of you must have seen documentaries or even read the book, where very compelling real life stories of how it has helped people. I have had a lot of people coming and asking, has Swami spoken about it? What do you think? Is it valid? Is it worthwhile trying it out? The fact is, of course, it does work. A mind is a very, very powerful tool, and what you constantly contemplate on does manifest in this very life. And that is actually what is referred to as the Hiranyagarbha aspect of the mind. In fact, I had a couple of years back spoken extensively on this topic in one of my talks. I will not go into the detail of what is that Hiranyagarbha aspect of the mind and the law of attraction. In case any of the listeners are interested, do write to me. I'll send you a link where you can listen to that. But going back to this law of attraction, it certainly does work, but there is one sure problem with that, and that is when you keep repeating in your mind that I will be happy when I achieve this, I will be happy when I get what I desire, there is a problem with that. If you read the book, or if you follow some of the speakers who speak about that, people who want to become rich, they give the example of how they imagine that they're already rich, they're already millionaires, and they try to concentrate on that lifestyle that they would lead when they reach there. Or someone who wants to win a championship imagines that he's already a champion or she's already a champion, and that they project that into their future. So whoever asks me about this technique, I tell them this one thing. Yes, it works, but imagining ourselves as anything but that perfect Brahman that is complete and self-satisfied would only be aiming for low and, in a way, reiterating that we need something to make me happy. When I say that I will be happy when I get $1 million, I am going to be happy when I am the Grand Slam winner in tennis, or I am going to be happy when I become a doctor or when I become a chartered accountant, whatever it is. When you keep reiterating that in your mind, you are reiterating to yourself that I will not be complete without this achievement. So in that sense, the law of attraction definitely works, but using anything else as your goal other than the Brahman which you really are is probably a misuse of this tool, and it is incomplete, and it is probably going to lead us to a lesser happiness, and we will come to that. Anything worldly, anything that is related to the senses are in a way a hidden trap in themselves, right? But what Krishna does in all these shlokas is to constantly repeat that state when you identify with the Supreme Self, right? If you really see all of these verses, some of the verses which we came across in the 3rd and the 4th chapter, he keeps repeating, when you reach there, you will not be sad, you will possess supreme peace, you reach a state of no return, in a sense that you can never be made to feel lacking after that. And not only that, there is no comparison for you. You identify every being with yourself. All of these things are reiterations to the mind. You constantly keep repeating to yourself, even though you're a karma yogi or a sadhaka, you're still not there. But constantly repeating these things as the nature that we are going to reach. This is actually a projection of who we will become in the future, and it's the best thing to do, right? Instead of saying that, oh, I lack this, or I will be happier when I get this, is like stamping on our mind saying that I am not happy now and I will not be happy till I get it. But rather reiterating to yourself that this is my true nature. My true nature is I do not need anything to make me happy. My true nature is I am able to show unconditional love to every being that is in front of me, whether it's a sinner or a meritorious person. So you're reiterating this truth we are reiterating this truth of our true self to ourselves, and there is anything lesser than this is probably a misuse of that powerful Hiranyagarbha aspect of the mind. So when we say that the jnani reaches the state of truth, it means whether I am aware of it or not, that is my nature. The goal is being referred to as the truth, which means I might be a karma yogi, or I might even be a very worldly person, or I might be, even in the worldly sense, somebody who's into crime and everything, but that does not take away my truth from me. I still, in my true nature, am that supreme self. So if I could use the term, we are literally marinating the mind in the truth of the self, which itself becomes a means by which we deal with pain and pleasure, victory and failure. And that is why these are constantly repeated over and over again, literally, so that our minds and our thinking can be put into this truth, and whatever little bit it absorbs helps us in this journey of karma yoga, or in this journey of whatever path we've taken to reach the goal, right? And that is the whole idea. So that was the 20th verse of chapter 5. We'll listen to the next verse and we'll see what Krishna is saying in that one.
बाह्यस्पर्शेष्वसक्तात्मा विन्दत्यात्मनि यत्सुखम् स ब्रह्मयोगयुक्तात्मा सुखमक्षयमश्नुते.
He finds happiness in his own self and enjoys eternal bliss, whose heart does not yearn for the contacts of earth and whose self is one with the everlasting. So that's verse number 21. Somewhere later, I think probably in the next chapter, Krishna is going to speak about meditation extensively, dhyana. But the basis for that is drawn through the concepts that he is saying in these shlokas. But the idea of describing a jnani for the benefit of sadhaka continues. Even in these verses, that is the underlying principle. In the previous shloka, Krishna said that he will not be elated or depressed when certain things happen in life. I will not jump in joy. I will not moan in sorrow. So what will be my temperament? Will I be morose all the time? Will I be sitting like a zombie? And Swami would often say, man's nature is best described as Ananda Pipasi, which means a being that is forever in search of Ananda. That is our nature, right? We constantly are in lookout for happiness, from the smallest of things to the highest, and it is this craving that will eventually lead us to seek it within. So the disposition of a jnani must be one of a person who has found that happiness within. So the disposition or the nature of a jnani should be of eternal satisfaction. And that is what Krishna describes here. A jnani is one who has found the happiness within. But he describes the jnani with a term which is very telling in itself. He calls the jnani as Bahya Sparsheshu Asaktatma. Bahya Sparsha. What's the meaning of this word? Bahya means outside, Sparsha means touch. So Bahya Sparsha means touch from the external or from the outside world. Though the word Sparsha means touch, this term Bahya Sparsha means is a reference to all interactions between the senses and the outside world. Because all sensual interactions are a form of touch. If you really look at it, even scientifically, if you see that. When I listen, the sound waves which come to me, touch and vibrate the tympanic membrane in the ear, and that is how I'm able to listen, right? Similarly, how does sight happen? Sight is when the light waves touch and activate the rods and cones, which are the photoreceptive cells in the eyes. So in that manner, all sensual interactions, whether you listen, when you hear, when you see, when you feel touch, all of that is some form of sparsha or the other. So bahya sparsheshu means any interaction of the senses with stimuli from outside. Asakta, the word asakta means detachment. So this terminology which Krishna is using, bahya sparsheshu asaktatma, means an individual who is detached from the joy that one derives from the interaction with the outside world through the senses. Then Krishna goes on to say, Yat sukham, that happiness, vindati atmani, he derives from one's inner self. We all derive happiness in some way or the other from these bahya sparsha. So what about the jnani? Where does he derive all his happiness from? That is what Krishna is saying here. Yat sukham, that happiness, vindati atmani, he derives that happiness from one's own self. So the jnani, when described as he doesn't get elated, doesn't feel depressed, is not someone who has lost taste for happiness. That doesn't happen. That is why I made a reference to Swami's phrase that Ananda Pipasi. As a worldly person, as a spiritual aspirant, as a jnani, we continue to be an Ananda Pipasi. We thirst for Ananda and happiness. Just that a jnani is somebody who has found it. And that is the only difference. So the nature of a jnani will be not of one who is absolutely detached from the world in the sense of nothing interests the person, or he's like a person who is completely lost in coma or something like that. No, it will be a person who does not have to seek anything outside, who is eternally satisfied, right? Someone who has found happiness already. If we just examine our own lives, it is very easy to notice clearly 3 different types of happiness, 3 or 4. It's a bit overlapping, but different types of happiness. 3, if I could mainly categorize them. We give them different names, but they're all different types of sukham or happiness nevertheless. The most lowest form of happiness is that which is accessible to almost everyone, irrespective of intelligence or spiritual nature of the person. And that happiness is the happiness that comes from the senses. Bahya sparsha, what Krishna was referring to here. The interaction between the senses and the external stimuli. It is accessible to everyone. To be able to relish this happiness, which we call in normal usage as pleasure, I only have to be awake or conscious. That's all is required for me to be able to enjoy this happiness. If I'm completely unconscious and you keep my favorite sweet in my mouth, I will not feel that pleasure, right? So I need to be awake and conscious to that moment. But that is all that is required for this happiness. But that is also not bahya sparsheshu asaktatma. A person who is, as I said, someone who's in coma or completely lost in the world because of disability of any kind is also someone who is actually, who does not respond to this kind of external stimuli, bahya sparsha. We are not talking about such a person who is lost to that pleasure because of any defect in the body. We are talking about a normally functioning human body as an example, right? For such a person, sensual pleasures is a low-hanging fruit. I am an Ananda Pipasi, I want happiness, and there is this happiness that is available so easily. So indeed I will go after it, isn't it? But there is a problem with this happiness. And there is a problem which is inbuilt into this happiness. It needs constant external stimuli. Today I eat an ice cream, I'm happy. Tomorrow if I want to feel happy again, I have to eat an ice cream again. So this happiness has 2 characteristics which are very obvious. And these are things which are mundane experience. You and I experience this every day. The 2 characteristics of this happiness which comes from pleasures, it lasts for a very short time and it has to be repeatedly stimulated with that which causes this happiness. And it has diminishing returns. if I could add that as a separate third quality. Which means I keep having an ice cream for every day, and you will find that within a week I'll become bored, right? And I will not feel the same happiness. In fact, one of the scientific researches that they've done, they had somebody's mind hooked up to a system, because it is very easy to measure the happiness that the brain feels, though it's a different concept altogether. The way the brain reacts to happiness can be easily measured. And when they measured the happiness of someone who is eating an ice cream, they found that the happiness level decreases so much from the first lick of the ice cream to the third or fourth or fifth lick, right? So that is how diminishing the returns are when we're talking about the pleasures that come from the sensual pleasures, right? And this happiness, of course, becomes a little more complicated when the mind steps in. This happiness I get when I say I'm seeing a cricket match or playing a particular video game. Not necessarily you may feel it, or you may be interested in something else, and I may not sitting there in a classical concert, which is a very complex exposition of classical music. I probably may not enjoy it. I probably might be sitting there and getting a headache. And similarly, you might be sitting in a cricket match and you might get really bored. So the same pleasure with external stimuli become more complex when the mind and one's personality comes in. The second kind of happiness is not purely attached to the senses alone. It is more to do with the mind. So the first happiness is more attached to the senses, with a little bit of the mind contributing into the happiness. The second is where the happiness is more and more detached from the physical and more related to the mind. Say when the mind is occupied with activity that it thinks is useful, which it likes, which has a long-term impact. When someone is, say, working, when you are studying for an exam, when you are working on a book, you're writing, when you are working hard for a loved one. And you will find that in pursuing this happiness that comes out of engagement, this happiness that comes out of getting the mind absorbed into a work which has a little more meaning. In the pursuit of such happiness, we will very easily give up physical comforts. We will forget sleep. We will forget hunger. We might be in an uncomfortable sitting position. All of that doesn't matter when the mind gets completely involved in an activity that it draws happiness from. And you can see this, one of the best examples you can think of is how parents very easily sacrifice their pleasures and comforts for their children, because they find more meaning in that happiness than the happiness that comes out of pleasures. So there is a certain happiness in this which is deeper than mere pleasure, and this happiness becomes deeper as the purpose expands. When more people are going to benefit out of this than just me, when it comes from the individual to the family, to the society, when the purpose deepens, the happiness deepens too. Because this happiness now depends less on objects as such and more on the individual. So this happiness is not as fleeting as the sensual pleasures. And both these pleasures are certainly required for life. I'm not in any way berating these happiness. These both are required for human life. And we have been made in that manner. We have been engineered in that manner to require both these kind of happiness. And it is these two that are referred to as the two Purusharthas, Kama and Artha. Of the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Kama and Artha are these. Kama are the pleasures. Artha is that which gives purpose, right? That which Artha literally means what I gather in the form of wealth, in the form of family, in the form of security. Kama is the pleasures. So Kama and Artha literally are these two pursuits that we are talking about in these two forms of happiness. But all these happiness, though I give two categories, I think the gradation of the happiness can be in multitudes. All these happiness in some form or the other involve external stimuli, bahya sparsha, either in the form of sense objects, comforts, a sense of security from the unpredictabilities of life which involves our dear ones, or in the form of approval or applause. But even as we enjoy these pleasures, if we can pay a little attention and notice that happiness is actually coming from within. How is that? Well, we'll not go deep into that. We may stray too far away from the topic. But the experience is that the happiness only comes from within, even as we go through pursuing all these kinds of happiness, from the low-hanging happiness that comes from sensual pleasures to the happiness that comes with a sense of purpose. All of this happiness comes only from within. All outside events at best only create a scenario for this happiness to surface to the mind. And spirituality is nothing but looking for that reserve of happiness which is within each one of us, which is that self. And since this happiness is in no way shackled to external entities, this happiness becomes limitless. If it is attached to an ice cream, I need an ice cream to be happy, to make me happy. If it is attached to family, I need the welfare of my family to make me happy. If it is attached to my ambitions, I need the fulfillment of those ambitions to be happy. But when I sever, when I cut all these strings and I become an asaktatma, this happiness then becomes limitless. So karma yoga is one of those many means of trying to find that happiness. That is why Krishna keeps telling, focus on activity, not on the results. Focus on your dharma, not on the fruits. Why is that? Why is this statement repeated so often? Because these are ways by which we derive happiness from things that are within our control. The moment the bet for my happiness is placed outside of me, I'm endangering my happiness, right? We've spoken about this in the earlier episodes too. So the whole idea is to find the reserve of happiness within, and one of the best ways to do that is to become detached to the pulls and pushes of the happiness that is dependent on things outside. When we talk about a jnani, he or she is one who has perfected this means, right? Perfected this way by which you completely cut the strings that pull this jnana outside. Pull this happiness. The strings for our happiness are outside of us. So when we talk about a jnani, he or she is one who has perfected this art of keeping the happiness intact and not attached to anything outside. What happens then to one who derives undiminished happiness in this manner? Krishna says, Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. So he says, Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. The jnani enjoys the happiness that is imperishable. Sukham Akshayam. Sa Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. He who is a Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, one who is absorbed in the Brahman, he is able to enjoy Sukham Akshayam Ashnute. He enjoys Sukham that is Akshayam, which is limitless, which does not perish or does not diminish. So this is the nature of a jnani, and as I said in the beginning, who is being described for the benefit of not the jnani but for you and me. A hint that yes, you will feel happiness through the touch of sense objects, but a happiness that is far beyond is hidden within is being given in the shloka, right? So an acknowledgement that yes, Bahya Sparsha is going to give happiness, but you will have to take the path where you get detached from this Bahya Sparsha happiness and look for that happiness within. Well, just because it is within, it is not so easily accessible either. There is a method and there is a means for that, and that is what is the spiritual path. But this reminder that the source for happiness is within and only within will make us more and more Bahya Sparsheshu Asaktatma. I will be happy if you give me an ice cream. I will be happy if you praise me. I will be happy if my business does well. But because I am aware that the real happiness is within, I will probably be a little less attached to the happiness that comes from all of this. Or I will be less fearful of this happiness being taken away from me. Right? So for all of us who are still in that state where we do look outside for this happiness, we might not be in that state where we are a perfect asaktatma, we're completely detached from all of this. But even small ounces of detachment from this bahya sparsha will take us a long way, will find better happiness to us, right? As Krishna had said in one of the earlier shlokas, the jnani reaches Shanti Param, right? The supreme Shanti is attained by the jnani. But a sadhaka starts seeing peace which probably he or she did not see in the worldly path. Sees a peace which is more and more detached from the scenarios outside. In the similar manner, yes, the jnani will be an asaktatma, the perfect asaktatma is completely detached from everything else, completely does not depend on the stimuli from outside. But when we are trying to reach there, we will at least come to that extent where we say that yes, I will be happy if these things happen, but I'm not going to be completely dejected and go into depression when it does not happen. So a little bit of balance comes in when we keep this in mind. So that was the 21st shloka. We'll go to the next shloka. We'll listen to it and we will discuss that as the last shloka for today.
ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधः.
The enjoyments that are born of contacts are only generators of pain, for they have a beginning and an end. O Arjuna, the wise man does not rejoice in them. So that's verse number 22. What is said in this particular verse and of course the previous one is very similar to a shloka that we had come across in the second chapter itself. To be more precise, the 14th shloka of the second chapter. Of course there Krishna had directly given it as a piece of advice to Arjuna. But the reason for that advice or what that advice will eventually lead you to is probably mentioned in this particular shloka. Krishna had said in that shloka in the 14th verse of chapter 2, he said, Matra sparshastu shita ushna sukha dukkhada. Because of the interaction between the senses and the external world, you sense heat and cold, pleasure and happiness. Matra sparshastu is more or less synonymous with bhaya sparsheshu, right, in the previous verse. In the verse in that second chapter, Krishna had said, it is a matter of fact that just like how you feel heat and cold, the summer comes and it becomes warm and uncomfortable, the winter comes and becomes a little pleasant, the winter becomes a little more harsh and then again it becomes unpleasant. In the same manner, you feel pleasure and pain when the senses interact with things outside. And just like how you more or less put up with discomfort that arises when your body interacts with weather, you cannot change weather. You put a sweater when it becomes too cold, you wear a thinner shirt when it becomes too warm. In the same manner, we must find ways to endure with pleasure and pain. Tam titikshasva bharata, he said to Arjuna. He said, "O Arjuna, you must learn to tolerate them. You should learn means of forbearing them." But in these shlokas, the shloka that we just covered, and this particular shloka that we are going to, Krishna is saying what that titiksha or forbearance will eventually lead to. It will take us to a state of being bahya sparsheshu asaktatma, being totally detached to the stimuli from outside. That is the eventual goal. But in the initial stage, the desire for pleasure is not completely sublimated, but you just learn to tolerate that pain as it is part and parcel of life. Even as you strive for pleasures, you will stumble upon pains every now and then. You kind of acknowledge that and you accept that. But in this stage, in the case of a jnani that we are talking about, you realize that the pleasure is only a sham. Even the pleasure that comes in front of you is not true pleasure. It is a fake. If someone gives you money and takes it away, we will not refer to that as benevolence, right? In the morning somebody comes and gives me, I see that you're struggling with your finances, take this 10,000 rupees, and in the afternoon that person comes and takes it away. At the end of the day, you will not look at that person and say that, he was a very kind man, right? You will look at it as, hey, I was duped into thinking that he was trying to be kind to me, right? This nature of the sensual pleasures, when it gives and also takes away, as mentioned even in that shloka in the second chapter when Krishna said, Agamapayina anityaha. The pleasures come and go and they are not lasting. They are anitya, they are not eternal. So which means that the pleasure that you experience when they give, it is not pleasure at all. It is a temptation, but it never is pleasure, because anything that is given and take away cannot be spoken of as something that has been given in that sense, right? So the seed for knowledge is placed in the mind through this information, through sensitizing the sadhaka to this information. That seed becomes tolerance or titiksha in a spiritual aspirant, right? When you're in the world, when you're steeped in the world, when you're all the time running behind pleasures, this fact that pleasure and pain and part and parcel of life is almost like a seed which is put in the spiritual aspirant. It should become titiksha or forbearance. Then slowly it becomes vairagya or dispassion. In the case of a jnani, it becomes perfect asaktatma, right? It becomes perfect. You do not be touched at all, as Krishna explained a couple of verses back. It's like lotus leaf and the water. It does not interact at all. It does not cause any aberrations in the mind at all. Krishna says in this particular shloka, he says, Kaunteya, O Arjuna, yehi samsparshaja bhoga. Because that pleasure born out of bhoga, samsparshaja, means born from that contact between the senses and the sense objects. So he says, samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayonaya evate. Dukkhayona means a source of dukkha or misery. Dukkhayoni means it is a source of misery. Te dukkhayonaya eva. They are only sources of misery and nothing more. So Krishna says in the shloka that, O Arjuna, you should know that they are not even sources of pleasure, right? It is not like pleasure comes and goes. Because it comes and goes, they are not sources of pleasure, they are only sources of misery. So in the case of a jnani, the recognition is complete in that sense, that the senses are playing games with the individual. They are never the sources of joy. They are almost like narcotics, right? It certainly gives pleasure, but it makes you addicted to it, and eventually it does more harm than good. Then how can it be good in the larger sense? How can you call it a good substance in the end of the day? Same is the case with the senses. Yes, they give pleasure, but the same objects are also the sources of pain. And on the long run, you realize the pleasures are few and the misery is more, and the net, as you do your balance sheet, if I'm ending up with more misery than pleasures, then I will label them as dukkha yoni, source of misery and nothing more. Of course, this is not to completely run away from the sensual pleasure. The idea is not that, because if that was the idea, Krishna would have told Arjuna long back, take up sannyasa, right? This is just so that we give them least importance in our scheme of things. By constantly repeating this and constantly talking of pleasures and talking of senses in this manner is only so that we do not give them more importance than they should be given. When placed before duty and purpose, pleasure should not be given importance, right? And we know it for a fact. As I just explained, if I want to pass an exam, I'm prepared to forego the pleasures of play and sleep. If I want to have a good, I want to see success in business, I'm ready to give up my vacations and leisure. It is just that attitude should become more and more firm in us as we take to the spiritual path. In the second chapter, in that shloka, Krishna had described the sense pleasures as agamapayina anityaha. The pleasures come and go. In this shloka, Krishna says, Adyantavantaha, meaning they are limited. They have a beginning and they have an end. And that is why they are like narcotics. Because the pleasure begins and ends because the pleasure is so dependent on that external object, it makes you dependent on that external object. There is no way we can derive Nitya Sukham from that which is Anityam. That which is limited cannot give unlimited happiness. Interestingly, as a very famous journalist once said, if you think that you can derive limitless benefits from limited resources, you should either be a fool or you should be an economist, right? With due respect to all economists, but that is what we are trying to do. That which is Anityam, we are trying to draw Nitya Sukham from that, and it is not possible. So it is foolishness to try and derive unending happiness from something that is by nature not capable of giving unending happiness, because the nature of that object itself is anitya. So he says, Adyantavantaha kaunteya na teshu ramate buddhaha. That is why the wise do not rejoice in these pleasures. Na teshu ramate buddhaha. The wise do not find that as a source of happiness. They do not rejoice in these pleasures which have a beginning and an end. Adyantavantaha. Krishna uses the word buddhaha here, meaning a discriminating individual. Though the discussion is about a jnani, Krishna is stating that this maturity to see pleasure as they are is not even a spiritual trait. It is a simple intelligence, right? It is common sense. We only have to observe life more keenly to understand this simple fact. Even as we pursue worldly goals and comforts, I think we should just watch our own mind. I'm sure all of you will agree that we have many such accomplishments which, we have pursued them for many, many years or many months. But after we achieve them, we must have wondered, was it worth it? Is that all? Did I struggle so much only for this? I'm sure that is one feeling we have quite often when we go to some of these overhyped tourist destinations, right? And it's all the time we see it in the media, we see it in brochures, we see it in social media, and finally with spending a lot of money and time and effort, we go to that tourist destination and say, was it really worth it? It was so overhyped, right? So all sensual pleasures are like that overhyped tourist destinations. After we get there, we wonder, oh my God, did I crave so much for this? Did I make so many sacrifices for this? And this is an experience that is so real to each one of us. We have definitely gone through this experience in our own lives. So all this discussion is not to spoil our appetite for pleasures in life and say that, oh, life is so bugging and I want to run away from here. This is not to make us feel miserable. Oftentimes, this is an accusation that is given against Indian philosophy, saying that it is very negative and it is very pessimistic in its approach. It describes everything as pain and a source of misery, dukkha yoni. The idea is not that. It is not to make us feel miserable and take away all our appetite for small happiness in life. The idea is there is a greater treasure that is available to each one of us on the other side of all these pleasures. And we have right over those treasures. As Swami would say, we are amrutasya putraha. We are the rightful heirs to that immortal bliss. But as we wade through the samsara, cycle of pleasure and pain, it is very important to know things as they are, pleasures as they are, pain as they are. We must strip life of all the hyperboles of worldly pleasures. Observing Swami, he never told us to completely give up all these pleasures. I think that was never part of Swami's message. But just know them for what they are. Don't over-crave for them. Don't give them more importance than it's required. Don't make them the very center or goal of your life. And most importantly, when we have to look within, the pulse that comes from all of these external stimuli, bahya sparsha, should not become a distraction for us. So slowly its influence has to be tempered down, and that's the whole point, right? It is not for us to completely, there are sometimes when you sit down to eat a good meal and somebody tells something which puts you off, bad news or something which is not supposed to be spoken when you're eating, you lose all your appetite at that moment, and you kind of sometimes get up and go away, or you eat it without any relish. The idea of explaining what pleasure is and describing pleasure as the source of misery and to describe it as a narcotic or whatever we are doing is not so that not to spoil your dinner tonight. That's not the idea. But to get a right perspective of life. Pain is pain. Pleasure is pleasure. A pleasure gives you only this much happiness. A pain disturbs you only this much. You do not give the mind the scope to imagine a sensual pleasure to be unlimited pleasure. You do not give scope to your mind to imagine a small pain that happens in life to mean that my whole world has come crumbling down. Everything is given its role and place, and that is why Kama and Artha is spoken of as Purusharthas, the goals of human life. It is not wrong to pursue them, but then Swami speaks about Dharma and Moksha. Those should be the pillars, or those should be the banks that constantly govern the pursuit of Kama and Artha. Right? That's a larger discussion, of course. But the whole idea of all of this is so that eventually, as I said, these are all precursors to what Krishna is going to speak about as the path of meditation. And how can you talk about meditation without distractions? The best way to do meditation is to get over distractions, and the distractions that we are talking about are all having moles inside us. The distractions are not outside. The distractions have agencies within us which are collaborating with all these distractions from outside, right? So the whole point is to discipline this mind, and that is why Krishna is repeatedly saying all of this. And as I said, it is like marinating the mind in truth, marinating the mind in these truths about life, so that we will look beyond the samsara, we will look beyond these pleasures and pains and not get lost in them. It is like you have something that is so much more greater there. Yes, this is a low-hanging fruit. I am an Ananda Pipasi, and there are fruits which are so easily accessible. That's why Krishna had said in one of the shlokas, he said this is a distraction, because so much can be attained through small karma that we don't think about karma yoga. So the whole idea is to constantly tell us, don't get lost in this. There is something way, way, way better on the other side of the bank, and that's the whole point, right? So with that, dear listeners, we'll conclude this week's episode. We'll continue the 5th chapter next week. We've come almost to the fag end of the 5th chapter, but I think we'll take a couple of more weeks to complete that. So do join me again next week for the resumption of the Gita series, A Triune Pilgrimage. I most humbly offer this effort at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Till I meet you all next week, take care. Jai Sai Ram.
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुण शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुण शिवा अक्षयलिंगा आत्मलिंगा अक्षयलिंगा आत्मलिंगा अक्षयलिंगा आत्मलिंगा तेजोमय विग्रहलिंगा तेजोमय विग्रहलिंगा इह परसुखदायका ईशा सुखदायका ईशा इह परसुखदायका अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुण शिवा अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिवा
जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक पति महेश्वरा ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशि मदना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पल
समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु शांति शांति शांति। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। 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 ॐ